It was a quiet Wednesday night when Liam Brooks, a freelance graphic designer, sat at his desk in his one-bedroom Tokyo apartment. He wasn't Japanese. He was an English-speaking foreigner who had been living abroad for 2 years, making a modest living off commissions. Liam had a habit, browsing the web late at night, not just Reddit or YouTube, but the darker corners of the internet. Curiosity fed him more than fear ever could. At 2:47 a.m., while reading an obscure forum thread titled "Websites That Shouldn't Exist," a link caught his eye. Redroom92.net. He hovered his cursor over it. The description said nothing. Just one cryptic comment below. "Don't let it ask you the question." Liam clicked. Nothing loaded. Just a black screen. A few seconds passed. Suddenly, a red pop-up window appeared in the center of the screen. "Do you like the Red Room?" The pop-up had no exit button, just the question in pixelated red font. Liam chuckled. "Classic creepypasta crap," he muttered, and tried to close the browser. But nothing happened. The pop-up stayed. His mouse froze. Then his speakers cracked with a low whisper, so faint he couldn't make out the words. The pop-up disappeared by itself. His desktop flickered, and everything went back to normal. By morning, Liam had almost forgotten about it, until he opened his browser again. All tabs reopened except one, the Red Room site. He tried Googling it, but there were no results, not even in cache. Nothing. Weirder still, his browsing history was wiped clean. Everything from the previous night, gone. Later that afternoon, Liam got a message on Discord from someone named Oni888. "You were there last night. Now it knows you." Liam blocked the account instantly. He thought someone was messing with him. Maybe someone from the forum. But that night, when he came back to his apartment, his wallpaper had changed. It was blood red. The next few nights got progressively stranger. His webcam light would randomly turn on. His screen would flicker and flash disturbing images for half a second, faces with mouths sewn shut, pale figures staring into nothingness. When he tried to record it on his phone, nothing showed up, only static. Then came the whispering again. He unplugged his speakers, but the whisper came from inside the room. "Do you like the Red Room?" Each time he heard it, it was a little louder. One night, he left his PC unplugged completely, but the whisper came anyway. And then came the knock. Liam reached out to a Japanese coworker, Riku, who was fluent in English. He showed him a screenshot he managed to take of the pop-up. Riku went pale. "I know this. It's a legend. Kids in the early 2000s, there was this rumor. You visit a site and it asks you that question. A red list shows up after." Liam leaned in. "Red list?" "Yeah, a list of names. Everyone on that list ends up dead, walls painted in blood. That's why they call it the Red Room. The blood makes it red." Liam laughed nervously. "And how do I know if I'm on the list?" Riku looked him dead in the eyes. "If the pop-up asked you the question, you're already on it." That night, Liam didn't sleep. He left all the lights on. His laptop was off, his phone in airplane mode, but just after 3 a.m., his monitor turned on by itself. No booting, just an open browser window. On the screen, a list of names, one by one appearing in red font. He scrolled, his heart dropped. Liam Brooks, 25/6/12. The timestamp showed tomorrow's date. He turned off the monitor and grabbed his coat. He wasn't going to stay there, but before he reached the door, he froze. The walls. They were turning red, not paint, something dripping. And then, a whisper, not from speakers, but right behind his ear. "You said yes." A week later, a neighbor complained about a foul smell from Liam's apartment. Police entered. They found red graffiti on every wall. No words, just chaotic handprints and splashes. No body, just blood. Everywhere. On the desk sat his laptop, turned on. A single open browser window. "Do you like the Red Room?" The case was closed as a disappearance. But the laptop was never found again after it entered evidence. Thomas Rayner was a 31-year-old freelance audio engineer living in West Virginia. It was past midnight when he found himself stranded on Route 67, an empty stretch of road lined with dead trees and telephone poles that hadn't worked in decades. His old sedan had sputtered to a stop without warning. His phone showed no signal. As he stepped out to check the engine, the wind died completely. Silence, not even crickets. And then he saw him, standing perfectly still on the opposite side of the road. A tall, gaunt man, pale skin, wearing a tight-fitting gray suit that looked decades out of style. His arms hung too low, nearly past his knees, and his mouth stretched into a grotesquely wide grin. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He just stared and smiled. Thomas stared back, frozen. When he blinked, the man was closer. Panicking, Thomas dove back into his car. The engine miraculously roared to life. As he sped off, he didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. He knew he'd still be there. The next morning, Thomas convinced himself it was a hallucination, stress, lack of sleep, maybe sleep paralysis with his eyes open. But that night, as he lay in bed, a voice entered his head. Not through his ears, not a dream, a direct intrusion. Do not be afraid, Thomas, I mean you no harm. He sat up in a cold sweat. His room was empty, the window was locked. But the air felt wrong, like something invisible was standing just out of reach. Each night, it happened again. The voice spoke calmly, reassuringly, but the smile in its tone was unmistakable, cold, inhuman. Thomas stopped sleeping. By the fourth day, Thomas began seeing him everywhere, not directly, not clearly, but just beyond the corners of his eyes. At the gas station, a tall figure standing motionless near the dumpster. At the grocery store, a man in gray, not moving, watching him from across the parking lot. Once, on a live Zoom call with a client, Thomas saw a faint reflection of that same smiling man in the black screen behind him. He shut the laptop mid-meeting. Desperate, Thomas confided in Jamie, his only friend from college who still lived nearby. They met at a diner near the river. He told her everything. She laughed it off, until they stepped outside and saw him across the street. Still, smiling. Jamie's face went pale. He doesn't blink, she whispered. He's just standing there. Thomas turned to respond, but when he looked back, the man was gone. 2 nights later, Jamie vanished. Her car was found parked on Route 67, engine running, driver's door wide open, no sign of a struggle, no footprints. Just one thing was off. The car radio was on, playing static. Beneath the static, a faint whisper repeated a name over and over. Indrid, Indrid, Indrid Cold. Thomas set up cameras around his apartment. He installed motion sensors, screen recorders, voice recorders. What he captured made his blood run cold. At 3:07 a.m., a camera in his hallway flickered. For exactly 6 seconds, a tall, smiling man stood at the end of the hallway, then disappeared. One of the microphones picked up garbled whispering. Slowed down, it said, "We see you, Thomas. We see all." He uploaded the footage to a private paranormal forum. Several users responded instantly. One wrote, "You've seen the Grinning Man. Some call him Indrid Cold. Once you see him, he sees you. The more attention you give him, the closer he gets." Another wrote, "He doesn't walk. He just appears. Never blink when he's near." Thomas posted a final video journal on the forum, shot with shaky hands in his dimly lit apartment. He's inside now, not physically, mentally. Every time I close my eyes, I see that smile. He pointed the camera at his bathroom mirror. There was nothing there. He turned it back to himself. He's waiting. He doesn't want to hurt me. He wants to replace me. Suddenly, the lights flickered. His face went blank. He blinked slowly, then smiled. The footage ended. Thomas was never heard from again. When police entered his apartment, they found everything untouched. No signs of a break-in. Cameras were still rolling, but the footage had been wiped. All that remained was a single typed message on his computer screen. "Hello. Don't be afraid. I just want to understand." David Mercer had never considered himself brave. He didn't seek out horror movies or haunted houses, and he never quite understood the appeal of willingly scaring oneself. But when the mysterious email arrived, curiosity overpowered caution. The message was simple. Can you survive the NoEnd House? No signature, no company logo, just an address, a date, and a single line. There are 7 rooms, each one worse than the last. Survive them all, win $500. It felt like a prank, but David couldn't stop thinking about it. By the time the date arrived, he found himself driving to the outskirts of the city, led by GPS coordinates buried in the email's metadata. The house he arrived at was disappointingly plain, an ordinary 2-story home at the end of a cul-de-sac. No decorations, no signs of life. Except for the sign on the door, hand-painted in shaky black letters, NoEnd House, enter if you dare. He hesitated only briefly. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, it was quiet, sterile. The air smelled faintly of bleach and something older, dust and damp wood. A speaker crackled overhead. Room 1. Proceed. The first room was anticlimactic. Cobwebs, a plastic skeleton, and a single jack-o'-lantern with a flickering LED candle. A rubber spider dropped from the ceiling as he walked past. David laughed nervously. This was a joke, surely. A wooden door opened at the far end. This room was darker, colder. The floorboards creaked with every step, and a low hum vibrated through the walls. There was furniture here, an old couch, a broken TV playing static, and children's toys scattered across the floor. From somewhere beyond the walls, a child laughed. David turned, but no one was there. As he reached the door to room 3, the TV blared a high-pitched scream, and for a split second, the screen showed his childhood bedroom. He blinked, and the static returned. Room 3 was a hallway. Long, endless, or so it seemed. The lights buzzed overhead as David walked. Footsteps echoed behind him, soft, matching his own. He stopped. They stopped. He turned around. Nothing. He began to walk faster. The footsteps behind him did too. He broke into a sprint. When he reached the end, gasping, there was no door. Only a mirror. His reflection smiled. He didn't. The wall beside the mirror opened into a narrow passage. This one was colder still. It resembled a hospital room, long abandoned. Medical instruments covered in rust, stained sheets and cracked tiles. The smell was overwhelming, rotting meat, mold, and antiseptic. In the center, a hospital bed, occupied. David stepped closer. The figure under the sheet was breathing. Suddenly the body sat up. It was his father, dead for years, pale, eyes hollow. "Why didn't you answer the phone, David?" David backed away, heart racing, but the door behind him opened with a groan. He ran through. It was pitch black. The door slammed shut behind him. Total silence, then whispers. Dozens, maybe hundreds, saying his name, over and over. David. 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 He covered his ears, but they were inside his head. He dropped to his knees, hyperventilating. Something brushed his face. A breath, a hand, then a blinding white light. A doorway appeared. He stumbled toward it. A replica of his apartment. Exactly the same, except off. No windows, no outside sounds. His phone displayed the correct time but wouldn't turn on. The food in his fridge was rotting. His cat, Milo, stared at him from the kitchen counter, but Milo had been dead for months. "You shouldn't have come here, David." The voice came from the living room. He turned. There he was, himself. Same clothes, same scars, same voice. But the smile was wrong. "You're not real," David whispered. The doppelganger lunged. David grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and swung. The thing shattered into ash. The front door creaked open. The final room was empty, white, infinite. A soft wind blew from nowhere. A single chair stood in the center. On it, a note. "You made it, but the house isn't done with you yet." The walls began to melt. A staircase appeared, spiraling downward into darkness. David took a breath and descended. He awoke in his bed. Sunlight. Birds chirping. Had it been a dream? His phone buzzed. A new email. "Welcome to room 1. He ran to the door. The street outside was wrong. The sky pulsed a sickly green. His neighbors stood frozen, unmoving. A man across the street turned and grinned. His face was David's. The sign on his front lawn read, "NoEnd House, room 2.